swear I do not believe it! And they are back on terms!
Hello, welcome again to New York Talk. We are back with you again. We have a Papa John's trophy to talk about. It's going to be a Papa John's specialist one, not just talk about the game itself on Tuesday night. There's been a lot of talk on social media the last few days about the trophy itself and its place in football. So I think now is a good time to talk about it. Now getting into the extra break game. So we're going to talk about that. We are here live Thursday night on YouTube. You can follow it, you can get involved, send us a comment, and then we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about as well. We have the standard crew with us, with an extra guest. We have Mick with us. Oh my God.
Hello.
We have Danny Ogden with us as well. Thank you for joining us again, Danny.
Hello, always a pleasure.
And we have Miller's broadcasting legend, Brian Chappell, with us. Thank you for joining us, Brian. You're on mute. You're on mute, Brian. It's not. This is not a good start.
You're on mute, Brian.
Okay.
We'll get there. I'm sure.
Right. Can you hear us, Brian? You're on mute. There we go. Nope. I think you're back. No, it's gone.
Oh, no.
For anybody that's just tuning in now, this was working 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, 2 minutes ago.
Okay. I don't know. We've never had this before. Mick, I'll let you deal with this.
Yeah, I'll thank you very much. Yeah, you just hand it on to me.
Yes.
And if you start, I'll try and get hold of Brian a different way and see if we can sort out his microphone problems.
Okay. Danny, let's start with Tuesday. We'll start where we mean to go on. Tuesday was, mate, it was so cold. It was so cold and wet. But a win in the Papa John's Trophy. We're essentially through to the last 32. I think we decided it was last 32, which is basically all you can ask for, really. And we're through. That's it, really.
Yeah, and like I say, it was cold. I've actually caught cold from going to that game.
Surprised.
Yeah, I was on the Wednesday. I just didn't want to get out of bed. I was just gone. My voice had gone. Everything was just upset, basically. I'm still not completely better today. I've got a nice honey tea to keep me going. But yeah, like I say, in terms of on Tuesday night and winning, it's effectively us through now because I think Donny have at least a 15 goal difference to overturn. And I know Scunny aren't the best team, but they're not going to score 15 past them.
No.
But unfortunately, it does mean that the game against Man City under-21s is an even deader game than it was going to be anyway. But main positive, it was a good performance. Granted, Warney said it wasn't the best and he wants us to be better, which I can see where he's coming from. But yeah, that's basically us through, and hopefully the next round draw doesn't completely screw us over. Can you imagine if we get Carlisle United away on a Tuesday night?
Yeah. Yeah.
It won't be the first time we've done that in this competition, would it?
Yeah, no, exactly.
We've got Brian back. Can we hear you is the question.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just put a shilling in the meter. That was the thing. You didn't tell me about that, Michael.
I'm sorry, I apologise. You needed 50. I should have told you to bring some extra 50 pences.
All right. How are you doing, Brian?
Very, very well, thank you. And I'm glad I'm live from Rotherham and speaking to you guys. Eventually.
Yeah, so are we. Harvey Kelwick has joined us on YouTube as well. Mick, I want you to answer this one. Opinions on Dauphin on Tuesday night. Scored? Yes, I don't think he was superb, but it did a job.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he won the man of the match, didn't he? And yeah, he played reasonably well. He was probably one of the standout players, if you like, in a performance that, as you've just alluded to, there was quite flat, probably for 2/3 of the game. You know, the first 20 minutes we were all right, did really, really well, and the last 20 minutes we did really well. But in between, we just sort of kind of sat off and were pretty anonymous as a team. I thought it looks a good prospect, this Hakeem Odoffin. It looks a really, really good prospect. And he scored a couple of decent goals in this competition. And he's you know, he's staking a claim, isn't he? He's going to stake a claim for one of those midfield berths, should there be an injury. I don't think he's ahead of any of the starting three at the moment, but I thought he had a good game and a well-taken goal again.
A very well-taken goal, yeah. We talked before we started, Brian, about our recruitment this season. And Odoffin's a sort of an example of that. We signed him in the summer, but he's not playing, but he's clearly a decent player. It's a sign of good recruitment, really.
I think it's a sign that the Millers have got a real chance of doing something this season, because I think they've recruited well and they've got the best squad of players they've had for some time. You know, when you look at the bench, when everybody's fit, it's looking really strong. And he needs game time, doesn't he? You know, Reg recently, you know, hadn't started particularly well, but he's had a bit more game time and he's grown in confidence very quickly. It can't be easy to come into a new club, can it? Into a new area, into a new team, and to be assimilated. And it often takes time. I mean, some people hit the ground running, but not everybody does. So I think he showed the other night that there are attributes he has that perhaps later in the season we'll begin to rely on. I hope so.
Yeah, I agree. I thought, Danny, that the only issue with him and Barlaser playing together, him and Barlaser took up the same space quite a lot. They sort of almost got in each other's way. So, which is good that Odoffin could do that, but it also adds another hurdle in front of Odoffin, that if Barlaser can get in those positions, that's going to cause him more problems getting in the team.
Yeah, and I think they occupy a very similar position in terms of where they played in the past. Like Odoffin's more of the sitting back midfielder, and Barlaser's more in that position as well, because he's certainly not a pushing forward attacking midfielder like Rathbone and Wiles are. So I think when you play them alongside each other, they do sort of get in each other's way a little bit, like they did on Tuesday. But at the same time, it doesn't create major issues in terms of getting in each other's way. And I think the only difference between the two really is that Barlaser has got better distribution in terms of long balls than Odoffin does. But Odoffin's more of a semi-Ajayi-esque player when you play him in midfield, which isn't a bad thing. And like Mick said, Odoffin scored 2 really good goals in this competition when he's played. I think they gave the other one to Donny's keeper, but Mick secretly Odoffin's into it. And then this one on Tuesday as well. So whenever Odoffin comes on, he only scores thundercrackers, which isn't a bad thing at all.
No, definitely not. Let's talk about Josh Vickers briefly, Mick. We talked about the game itself. We flattered to deceive at times. Josh Vickers was probably rightfully man of the match. He did everything well. He made some key saves at key times in the game. His kicking's very good. He would be a starter at quite a lot of other League One clubs based on what we've seen so far.
I don't think there's any doubt about that, is there? We were surprised anybody when Lincoln let him go last season, or whenever it was that they let him go. I mean, he's a number one keeper, isn't he? There's no doubt about it. He just can't get in the team, and that's mirrored across the squad. Like Brian just said earlier on, you know, the players that are sat on that bench are justifiably first team starters. They just can't get a place, you know. And just one more thing on Odoffin. I mean, that something Danny alluded to there, and saying he's not got the passing range that Barlaser's got. I don't think anybody in this league has got the passing range that Dan Barlaser's got. You know, his football, his midfield play should come with an X rating because it's football porn. It really is. You know, the way he plays, that midfield, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to watch. There is not a better midfielder in this division, in my view.
Barlaser hit 3 or 4 30, 40, 50-yard passes against Crewe, first half in particular, which were absolutely outstanding, weren't they? From sort of the old-fashioned left half, inside left position, across to the right to Chiodo. Just amazing vision and skill. I agree with you about him. I think he's going to be one of the key players this season for us.
Yeah, definitely.
I completely agree. I'll ask you about Brian. Rathbone came on last 20 minutes. I want to know your opinion on Rathbone. He seems like a typical Rotherham United player from what we've talked about. What are your views on him?
I think he's the sort of player we've missed for 2 or 3 seasons. This box-to-box, never say die, high energy. I think he's made a great start to the season, and I'm delighted to see him score against Crewe. That's one part of his game that, most midfield players, however hard they work and however important they are in the team, to score some goals is a real added bonus that hopefully he will bring to his game. But I've been really, really impressed with him. It's that energy, isn't it, that is so important. And I think he complements Barlaser really well.
Yeah, I think he definitely does. Before I forget, I meant to mention at the start, we are going to speak to a former Rotherham player next week, and we're going to announce on the show who that's going to be towards the end of the show. I meant to say that start to kind of tease everybody to stay and watch till the end, but I forgot, so I've said it now.
What you need, Matt, is a running order.
I've got a piece of paper that I've written down on that. I put exclamation marks and everything just so I could see it. So at the end of the show, we'll announce what that's going to be, assuming I remember. Harvey Killick.
Matt, we've been rehearsing this for 2 hours. I don't understand why you haven't got the, because I've got the running order here. So my makeup started to wear off. We've been at it so long tonight.
I need to step it up, I know. Harvey Killick's with again. It wants to know, Danny, your thoughts on Jake Hull on Tuesday. Came off after 70-ish minutes, something like that. That's the second game, played in the Donny game. I was so impressed. He looks to show the highest compliment I can pay him is that he looks like he should play for Rotherham United.
Yeah, I think his performance against Doncaster was a little bit better. But that's bound to happen. You're not going to be 9 out of 10 every single game, are you? But yeah, to say he's a young lad and he's not had much experience in first team professional football, and certainly at Rotherham's level, it does look very assured of his ability and very confident in how he plays. He's not the young deer in the headlights sort of defender that you see at some clubs. He is very confident in himself and he knows how good he is in defence. And I do think that is partially down to Richard Wood taking him under his wing. The experienced old head in defence, bringing through the next generation. And yeah, he is going to be a real asset whenever he breaks into the first team. Could be later this season because of injuries potentially, or it could be next season depending on what division we're in. But yeah, really good prospect player, and I really hope he cracks on and develops into a defender that we know he's going to be. And he's really tall as well, like freakishly tall for a defender. Because I watched his goal against Doncaster back the other day, and the size difference between him and Joe Mattock, and Mattock's not small. And to say he's only 19 years of age and he's about 6'3", 6'4", it's like you're going to be scary when you're a professional, when you're a proper professional defender.
Definitely.
Yeah, because he just carries some bulk as well, doesn't he? I don't mean weight. I mean he's not sort of a gangly 19-year-old. He's got some physicality about him. So yeah, it's definitely a good prospect.
Yeah, he is.
You're a big fan of an assuredness and a confidence. So I'm just saying, Hull seems to me to be very assured and immediately very confident for a young player who is playing in a position where experience counts for such a lot, and yet he's already made a really good start. And you mentioned, I think Danny would mention about Richard Wood. I think he's going to be pivotal in helping to bring that lad on. I think his experience will rub off, and again, he's part of this point that we were making earlier. He's another addition this year to the squad of players that throughout the positions, you know, you can look to say, well, you know, he's worth his place, he's worth his place. And for the first time for me in a little while, you look at most players, and most players can come in the squad, can come and play their part in this important season.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's all about improvement. But Paul Warne talks about this a lot. He did a podcast with the EFL this week, today, which is actually, if you haven't listened to that, you should all go listen to it because it's brilliant. It's got Warney, Alex Ravel, and the new Swansea manager just talking about management life and things like that. It's really, really good. If you haven't listened to that, I recommend it because it is superb. And Paul Warne's very open. We all know what Paul Warne's like. He's very open and honest, and in that, he's very open and honest about it. So if you haven't checked that out, do check that out.
Yeah.
Bowler, Mick, I know you're a big fan of Bowler. What were your thoughts? So you played that left wing back position on, obviously, because that's his position. He is getting better. I know we didn't play fantastically as a team, but Bowler's doing everything right in that position.
Yeah, he is. It is, and we've said it a few times now. It is a work in progress. There's no doubt about that. But he has got all the attributes, and that cross for Freddie was obscene. You know, outside of the left foot, absolute pinpoint cross. Freddie did not move. He did not move for a second. You know, it was an absolute perfect cross of peach. Really like him, and he's certainly one for the future. But he will play his part, as he's already proved this season, won't he? And effectively so as well.
Yeah, no, I will. Let's go through a couple of comments. Graham on YouTube, so he's just turned on, and it was very nice to see your face, Brian. You're a fan in Graham. Where are we? Graham also mentions about Jake Hull, very composed for his age, and seems to have a very bright future ahead. I think we all very much agree with that. And Russ Bailey talks about. We'll move on to the competition in general now. We talked about a lot of performances. And he mentions, although not a priority competition, it was still good to keep a lot of first team lads' legs ticking over with no game Saturday. The front three all on the clean sheet, which Freddie sent a little reminder out, irrespective of it being against Scunny. No disrespect to them. Yeah, I suppose. Well, one more question on the team, Brian. Freddie Ladapo gets a lot of talk on this podcast. He scored a goal on Tuesday. I suppose that's all he can do, really, is put the ball in the back of the net. But it's just Griggs coming and done so well is put him to the back of the queue a little bit, hasn't it?
Oh, that's awkward.
Go on, Mick, I'll let you answer. I know you like a good Freddie chat.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we've lost Brian just for a second. I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. Yeah, Freddie played well on Tuesday night. He scored a cracking goal, a cracking header. Got plenty of power behind it, and I just, we've talked about it and talked it to death. Really, it's just work rate, and it shows what he can do in bursts, doesn't he? And I think that's the issue for a lot of fans. That it's not a consistent, and it doesn't help Freddie with the fact that everybody else is at it for 90 minutes. You know what I mean? So it doesn't help him and his game and the way he plays his game. But put him in front of the goal, he's going to score, isn't he? He might. Yeah, I mean, he might start 5 or 6 games this season, come on for another half a dozen, and get 10 or 11 goals.
Yeah,
you can't really ask for much more, can you?
Not really, no. Well, I said we're going to move on, but we'll talk about a couple more players. I just want to mention Michael Smith scoring. He's now on 44 goals for the club, and I've done a little bit of research, and he's the second highest goal scorer this century for Rotherham United, only behind Adam Lafondra. Alfie's got 58 in all competitions. Smith has got 44. So Smithy could in this season go as our top scorer this century, which would be incredible from where he came as not necessarily a goal scorer. So that's just something to keep an eye on. I just thought I'd want to bring that up. That adds another, tick to his box of, his goal scoring abilities.
That's getting caught for Twitter later, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. Harvey, this is the last question. You can chuck as many questions as you want, Harvey. Danny, your thoughts on Harding against Scunny? He played 2 different positions here. He played fullback and then centre back. What were your thoughts on the game?
I think he did very well out on the wing. I do think he was only in that position because Gio was away with Ireland. But again, it's one of them things where he didn't look like completely lost in that position. He still looked very composed and assured in that position. And it just adds another feather another string to our bow of depth this season, where players can play in not their preferred position or not the position they've played the majority of the games in, but still look assured of themselves. It's like Harding's been playing left centre back for majority of the season, which granted is out of position, but he's not exactly been poor there, and now he's come back into this position and he hasn't looked poor. Same with the Neckaway as well. So I think it just, like Brian said earlier, something special could happen this season, and it could be down to not only the flexibility of the squad, but also the layers of depth that we've got, where even down to youth level, we've got really confident and assured players.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to correct myself. He's the third highest goal scorer this century behind Adam Lafondra and Mark Robbins. Robbins is on 49. So it will be second soon. So I'll clip it. I'll save it for a couple months' time. Let's move on to the tournament itself. It's had a lot of talk over the last few days, mainly because, Mick, it was a record night on Tuesday. It was a record low attendance for a game at New York Stadium. It's probably the lowest attendance I've ever been to. I remember a game at Don Valley in the same competition when there's around 15 to 1,800 against Lincoln. I think Tuesday may well be the lowest. The records are pretty sketchy going back quite far, so it's difficult to say for me to find if it's our lowest ever, but it could well be our lowest crowd ever. Where does the competition lie for you? We'll talk about its history in a minute, but right now in its current format, where does it sit for you?
Well, first of all, sadly, Brian's not going to make it back. Unfortunately, his Wi-Fi is about as good as my North Wales Wi-Fi, so I don't think he's going to make it back because it keeps dropping out. So sorry about that. As far as the competition's concerned, I think it's pointless. They it is pointless. We might as well just have a reserve league instead. As soon as they brought in the Premier League B teams, it lost any credibility that it actually had for me. It's just a joke. Bringing them in, and the fans have voted with their feet, and rightly so. I mean, we three sit here now, having been three of that crowd on Tuesday night, so I guess we are partially to blame, for the competition continuing. But you're going to go and see your club. You want to see your club, and we went for a specific reason of seeing some of these players that aren't getting first team football, which we wouldn't ordinarily be able to see unless you go up to Roundwood or whatever. But as a competition, it's done. It's done, it's gone. And it's gone for me with the introduction of the Premier League sides.
It's a shame. I really, really used to like this competition. Obviously, we've talked about this before in previous podcasts. I grew up on the stories of '96, with the win of the Auto Windscreen Shield. We've had a lot of fun times in this competition. I don't want to see it die. And I worry that there is no way back. I think now, even if you got rid of Premier League teams, I think fans would still be sceptical about it because I think it's lost what it had. Now, don't get me wrong, there weren't 10,000 fans every single first round game. That was never the case. But you still had reasonable crowd. You still had, a third of what the normal crowd would be, which is not bad for a cup game. I really want this competition to continue, Danny, but I feel like it might be lost to us.
I mean, I'm part of the generation that came into it when it was still the Johnston's Paint Trophy. So for me, the trophy's never changed, but the way the system changed and the format changed when it became checker trade just really upset the apple cart, because everyone really did think it was the beginning of B teams coming into league football, because it's the testing of the waters in the cup competition. And Pep Guardiola's made a lot of noise about it, and I think quite rightly been shot down about it. You've got a system where you've got all that money to develop your youth players. You've even got the reserve league to develop them in, but yet you still want your B teams in the lower leagues. Not going to happen. It's not Scotland, mate. But I put a poll out on Twitter just before the Scunthorpe game, just to gauge what everyone's thoughts were. Do you want the top National League teams to come into it and shake it up again like they did in 2005? When they brought in National League teams.
Something around that, yeah. A couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, or just revert it back to League One and League Two clubs and have it as like a closed competition for the teams that aren't really in with a chance of winning the League Cup or the FA Cup because of the dominance of the Premier League. And 53% thought National League teams should come in. to shake it up a little bit, and then 47 for League One and League Two clubs. But our friend Will Daniels from Tifoli View had the idea of having it as like a Premier League exempt EFL Cup, where you've got lower end Championship clubs that don't have the progressive means, shall we say, as the top end Championship clubs. They come into it and then make up the numbers with League One and League Two, because you only need 16 teams from a different league to make up the numbers we've got currently. And if you add the bottom 16 teams in the Championship come into it, they probably won't play complete first teams because of their league football and trying to build the league. But it'll certainly add a new dynamic to the competition and potentially see teams like Preston, who've never played Sutton United, have that interesting dynamic, which could boost your numbers up and bring more fans into it. But I think, like Mick says, I think the die has been cast. As soon as they brought Premier League teams into it, it's just really unfortunate. And the fans have spoken, attendances have plummeted. I mean, at Accrington, they had 8 fans. 8. Not 880, 8. And I think if you can find a lower attendance than that in this competition, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, it is a shame. We go back a few years, Mick, to when we had the cup. We had the run in 2000 and whenever it were at Don Valley, we ended up playing Scunthorpe in the Northern final around 2010. Yeah, that sounds about right. And then the cup run where we ended up played York away, Hartlepool away, Fleetwood away. These were fun. And I know we didn't get through to final and we didn't end up winning it. But these were good days out. They were good time to spend watching your team. And we didn't. In terms of the team that we put out, we put out a similar level. It weren't our first team we played every week, so that's not an issue. You don't always play your first team. You always used to play your first team. It's the other part of it. We are losing that, and if it was to disappear, it would be really sad.
It would. And I know I've banged on about it, but my view is that the decline has been because of this Premier League involvement.
Yeah.
And people, I can't speak for everybody, obviously. I can't. But the Premier League, for me, has cut itself adrift from the rest of football, really. You know, they've got ideas a million times above their station about how important they are to football in this country, you know. And they're stockpiling players right, left and centre, you know, huge squads of players or huge numbers of players on the books, and then can't understand why they can't get them a game, you know, and everybody else is scratching around for decent talent when it's all sat there on a bench at Chelsea, at Man City, at Man United.
They're not even on
a bench, you know, they're on a bench at Carrington in training ground or wherever anybody else trains, you know what I mean? Listen, for me, the Premier League is a joke, and I don't want any part of it. I don't watch it anymore. It's garbage, absolute garbage. But I think that's why a lot of people have walked away from this competition, because it's just them sticking the nose in and EFL seeing a bit of cash coming in. I assume
it is money related. What I would like to see is, this is my plan to save the trophy. Not going to happen, but it's how to save it.
Just hang on, let me get Rick Parry on phone. Hang on.
Is it? And it would take fans, but this would save it. If you said, right, we're going to boycott the competition when the under-21 teams play. If no fans turned up when City came to town in a few weeks' time, but for the game on Tuesday we got 8,000, that's a clear sign. That's a clear message that people are interested in the competition. I don't know if people are. This is what I would like to see happen. Not happen, but it's what I'd like to see. That would say to the EFL, right, this competition is serious and it means something, but not against people like that. To be honest, I don't think the EFL would still listen. I'm going to be honest. But that would send a clear and obvious message, because the EFL they'll turn around and say, oh well, same crowd for the City game as they were for that game, so it must be the same level. But the club don't help themselves, Danny, on ticket prices, £12.50 for the game. When you're trying to attract people, there could have been a drop in price. You don't often criticise the club, and they've probably not thought ahead of this, but they could have said, right, here's a fiver a ticket, free for kids. You would have got maybe a few hundred extra.
Unless that is the secret plan of the club. Keep the prices high, keep the attendance low. and show the EFL that no one wants to come.
True.
Yeah, you've got there's the cost of opening other parts of the ground as well, isn't there? You know, well, obviously we had about 4 or 5, maybe not even that, sections of seating open, maybe 3 or 4 sections of seating open. You know, if you get another 1,000 people in there, there's another section of ground to be opened, and there's all the stewarding and the costs involved with that as well. So you know, I don't know as they particularly want that many people. You know, there's going to be a figure, isn't there? You know, it's either 1,300 or 1,400 or 4,000. We don't want 2,500. I don't know. There will be some calculations made on costs and everything else. So, listen, for me, I don't have a problem with the ticket prices, but having said that, I can afford it, so I won't have a problem, will I? You know, and I know I am very, very much aware that some people can't afford it. So yeah, I can see both sides of the coin there. But I just wonder if a lot of it's down to cost of opening the stadium rather than anything else.
Yeah, there's also the option which I mentioned to you, Mick. So I'm interested to so you can get your thoughts on it, because it's just we've got time to kill. Let's have some fun ideas. If you said at the start of the season, including your season ticket price, is the free entry to both group games of the Papa John's Trophy, you can the club can add £10 onto the season ticket, for example, but you get free entry. All right, the club aren't getting money on the gate, but it is getting fans into the stadium for those games. You know, Premier League clubs do it for League Cup games, for example, don't they? So certainly, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's definitely a possibility, and I think if we were to go with your idea about fans boycotting the under-21s game and coming to the more league game, if you like, that'd certainly be the best option, because then you can say, right, including your season ticket is your EFL trophy game, or if you're a season ticket holder, you get it free. And then it's just down to your personal choice of, shall I go and watch them against City? No, it's under 21s, don't matter.
Yeah,
because then that definitely becomes a possibility. And like for me, I haven't seen Rotherham play Scunthorpe since the playoff semi-final. It were a different vibe because I wasn't on the pitch at the end of the game. But certainly as Man City, it will deter a lot of people, and I'll be surprised if we get over 1,000 there. I'll be surprised if we get over 500, to be honest. I mean, I'm going to go because I'm going to every game I can this season, because you don't know when the virus will come back. And I think that's why you sort of have to write off this season as being like one of the more higher attendance, non-protesty seasons, if that makes sense. Because a lot of people will go just to go to a game because they don't know when they might not be allowed to go in anymore. But yeah, for me, I'll see if I can show this on camera. For me, the EFL trophy games are just more for the ticket collection this season. Just more for tickets. So other than that, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. But I think now that we've gone through, it might pick up because people haven't really been that far in the competition, or at least I haven't since I've started being able to afford to go. So that's a different challenge. Just hopefully we don't get an under-21s team in next round. That would be really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's our best. It will be our best run since I think 2013-14 season when we got through to the area semi-final against lost away at Fleetwood. We've gone out in the first round last time, and I think the time before we went out in the first round as well. Let's go through some comments and then we'll see what else we've got. Graham says he'd like to see Smith sign a new deal as soon as possible. He brings so much to the way we play, and he does 100% deserve a pay rise. I don't know if we can afford it, but he definitely deserves it. David Bateman asks about Ben. Is Ben tucked in bed? It could be, to be honest. He is in London. He might be watching. Ben, if you're watching.
Leave us a comment then, Ben, if you're watching.
Yeah. If I know Ben, he won't be. Russ Bailey, this is a two-part. The competition has brought us our first visit to Wembley, and it was our only route to get in there. But now he thinks in more recent times, Wembley visits, because of the Wembley visits, he feels it's fizzled out and not as much fuss now. That was off 2 messages. Graham agreed with one of your points, Mick. I should have put that on when he put it. I can't remember what it was.
I think we were talking about Premier League teams and whether they should be in it and whether it were actually any good Premier League.
Okay. And Russ Bill, for the final for the time being, would say it makes a valid point. Would hate to see first team players get cropped in this competition. We've done for X amount of games touch wood, hasn't happened yet. That's always the worry in it. You play these games, people can get injured, but at the same time, you've got to play the games. The thing is, with League One and League Two, we have got space for these games. So that's why the competition was invented, because we have got spare midweeks, whereas the Premier League haven't because of Europe and things such as that. And we've got the FA Cup coming up soon as well, which is exciting. I'm excited for the FA Cup. I don't know anybody else. I can't wait for the FA Cup.
Sutton United away, I'm telling you, first round. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more likely to be Cheltenham at home, to be honest.
Yeah.
Something stupid like that. There's another round yet. The fourth qualifying round is, I think, next weekend for that, and then the draw will be following on from that. Before we move on to other stuff, well, we're going to move on to other stuff now. Will Grigg scored on Tuesday night. Will Grigg scored. There's been a lot of talk, Mick, about Will Grigg because he started scoring goals. Moving away from his actual playing, there's a growing concern that he may be called back by Sunderland. The January transfer window, I don't think it's been confirmed. There's always rumours that there will be a recall option in January. This is what I think I mentioned it on the podcast when we signed him. I'm massively concerned about this because if we're challenging Sunderland in January, which we could be, why would they not call him back? They'd be stupid not to call him back.
Yeah, they would. And they probably will if they've got that option to do it. So then it depends on whether we're able to make a move and buy him or not. Or whether he sees his contracts out there until the end of this, sitting on the bench up there till the end of the season. That, as far as fans are concerned, it's kind of out of our control, that, isn't it? Yeah. And I guess I don't know. I'm sure that Warney, Will Grigg, the recruitment team, and Tony Stewart will have some sort of plan or discussions in place. Should that happen? But it gives people something to moan about and all, doesn't it? We can soon look forward to some more tweets about Tony Stewart not digging his hand in his pocket and all that sort of nonsense that comes out. But I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? We could really do with him just hanging off with his goal scoring exploits, just the odd one here and there until back end of January, start of February, and then start banging them in. We'll see. It would be difficult. It would be very disappointing if that was to happen. But we're only in October. Let's not start panicking about something that's 3 months away yet. You know what I mean? But don't forget also that the player will have a say in that.
I'm not sure he will with loans.
Well, we'll see.
You don't know there isn't a recall option in his loan, right?
I didn't know that. Well, I've not seen it confirmed anywhere. I didn't talk everywhere, but I haven't seen anything confirmed. I know we rely on Paul Davis's articles and stuff, and I haven't seen anything yet. I know that it's something due out in the paper this week, isn't there? Have they confirmed there isn't a recall option?
Well, from what I've heard through grapevine, there isn't a recall option in any of the loans. Like there isn't one in Curtis Tilt's loan to Wigan. There isn't one in Edmonds Green's one to Huddersfield, and there isn't one in Griggs' one because I think we've played it very smart. The only loan recall options that I know of are the youth players. Like we've got one with Jake Cooper and Jake Hull, and the deal there is loan that means that he can play cup games as well. But as far as I'm aware, there isn't a recall option in Griggs' loan because that's him done at Sunderland now.
He did say that, didn't he? I said in an interview that, as far as he's concerned, he's not a Sunderland player anymore, essentially.
Yeah, and if Sunderland wants to be a bit iffy about it, they will say, "Oh, we're recalling him, we're breaking terms of the deal to sell him on to somebody." Yes, they can do that, but we would get compensation from that.
Yeah.
But I think Sunderland have done with him. They've played with him as a toy for a little bit and gone, "Don't want you anymore." And that's probably why there's no recall option. So it's just your full loan for the season, which potentially I think could lead to him coming on a permanent because apparently he loves it here. It's just a case of if he can pay his wages.
No, I mean, there is an article in Advertiser tomorrow, isn't there? Paul Davis has tweeted tonight where this subject is part of one of his articles. I've not read it yet. I think it's out digitally already, isn't it? But
I think so.
I've not had the opportunity to read it yet. So we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah. I was speaking to him, but another Sunderland podcast because obviously they're coming up in a few weeks' time, and they were sort of saying, I was telling them how good his work rate is, and what's impressed, not just his goals, what else has been very impressive. And he basically messaged back saying that's not the world cup for us. He didn't try, didn't run around, so that just shows how much he didn't want to be there. It's probably not the wrong word, but how difficult he found it. And he's happy.
For me, what that says is that the regime at Sunderland was not a very good one, and that's why Sunderland are still in League One.
Yeah, they've got a new owner now, haven't they?
Absolutely. I did say was.
Yeah.
Before I get
not as
clipped
rich as
on the
Newcastle's new
podcast.
owners. More money at the top of football, eh?
The Geordies do definitely have too much money now.
Crazy times. Mick will be pleased about that, won't you, Mick? Getting Geordies happy.
I couldn't care less about Newcastle. Could not care less.
I think the only reason I'm happy is because it'll make Smudge and Barlaser happy being Newcastle fans.
True.
I'm happy because they'll be happy about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Then we've got time tonight, so I'm going to throw a hypothetical out there for you in relation to the Newcastle one. There's been lots of talk about the Saudi owners and the issues that the Saudis have. Does it matter to you about your owner and your chairman and their background and their issues in the past? Let's put it politically polite like that, Mick.
Yeah.
It does matter.
Yeah, it matters to me, yeah. It matters to me. It's about having a sustainable club, first of all. And when we're talking about our level, and when at our level, when you're talking about dodgy owners, you ain't having a sustainable club because they need to take money out of it.
Yeah.
That's different, I accept, from the question that you're asking in terms of Newcastle. Listen, they've got the money. They've got the money. Anything else doesn't matter as far as football is concerned. Whether it matters to supporters, whether it matters to other organisations outside of football, is utterly irrelevant as far as football is concerned, because football is money, and that at that level, that's all it's about. And I will absolutely guarantee you one thing, that come the end of January, if Newcastle haven't spent up to the absolute maximum that they're allowed to spend to under the financial fair play agreement, the Newcastle fans will be whining again. I'm absolutely guarantee it 100%. It doesn't matter whether they bring in 11 absolute world-class players for nothing. If they haven't spent up, they are not going to be happy. That's my view. But yeah, I don't think it's right. I don't think people with that sort of background, really, I don't think we should be endorsing what they do. But it's politics, then you're into politics as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on your side, Mick, with that. Danny, what are your thoughts on, again, we're not going to spend much time on this, but what are your thoughts on the Saudis coming into English football?
Well, apparently the reason the deal didn't go through 18 months ago was because of a TV rights dispute with Qatar. And that was the only reason. So it just goes to show that when money's talking, they don't really care about human rights violations or some of the thought process behind Saudi Arabia and how they conduct themselves. It's all about money, and the reason it were blocked was because Qatar were upset that they were blocking their TV rights, or something similar anyway. But for me, if you at our level, it's all about someone who's invested in your club and isn't there just to have it as a business venture. Because we've seen that with far too many owners. They've tried to run it as a making money business, and football at our level in the current day, it's very hard to turn a profit. I'm surprised Rotherham do it for a couple of seasons. I mean, you have to look at Steve Dale and what he did with Bury just to show how
Guy Oldham's doing the same, isn't he?
Exactly. So for me, it's about having an owner who not only has the money to fund where your club wants to be, and it needs to be someone who's invested in the cause as well. And you see a lot of chairmen at Premier League level, they aren't that. It's like, which chairman is it? Is it Liverpool's, who's an American? No, it's Arsenal, sorry. Arsenal's chairman.
Kroenke.
Yeah, has nothing to do with club at all. He's just there to make money out of it. Doesn't care what happens to Arsenal. As long as he gets a bit of money in his back pocket, he don't care. And that's the incorrect way to fund football. I mean, sure, you'll have clubs swaying between leagues and stuff, but you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to how much money you've got and how much you're willing to invest. But the ones who run it as businesses, certainly at our level, don't do it successfully. But I will say the one thing I'm happy about: the Saudis have come in and bought Newcastle. They will upset the big six apple cart majorly. Which is exactly what Blackburn did when the Premier League were first formed, and then they won it within 2 years. And I really hope Newcastle do the same, because there will be a lot of upset fans from the big six clubs, and it might just take them down a peg, which I'm.
They won't though, Danny, will they? All these fans will do is buy a black and white shirt.
But yeah,
it's somebody else about it mixed, though, isn't it?
Of the big six, though, which is what I want to see. We've had the big six for far too long.
Yeah. I think they should bring back Kevin Keegan, just for giggles.
Because he was useless. He's absolutely useless. So that'd be
I know, but
than that.
It makes it fun, doesn't it? You just, you know, it might be laughing at him, but that's not quite the point. Graham, page 47, and Ardoc mentioned Anton Johnson. Ardoc mentioned didn't matter when Johnson came in. Educate us younger folks, make Anton Johnson.
I'm just trying to think of a modern day equivalent. Probably that clown that's gone from Charlton to Rochdale now. He's trying to buy Rochdale, isn't he?
Is it really?
Yeah, I think it's the same fella.
Roland de Chantelet, or whatever it's called.
I have no idea. Anton Johnson. I mean, I was out like Adrak. I was young at the time, and I rode in on the success of Anton Johnson, and it was all wonderful and it was all fantastic and everything else.
There's a picture of his coat.
There you go.
It looks like Del Boy on steroids.
It does.
So
he doesn't. It looks like Boise. That's what he looks like.
I'll tell you what, Shala. You've just shown that picture. I don't need to say anything else, do I?
No.
I don't need to say anything else about Anton Johnson. He came in, spent some money, got his promotion, and then he was dodgy as dodgy could be. As it turned out, and that's ultimately, I guess, that's one of those things that led us to being into the situation we're in when Ken Booth kind of lost interest in the club. Ken Booth had to take it over after Johnson left. I don't think he had any choice, from my memory. Yeah. A typical boom and bust situation. Bad owner, no question, but he brought success. But let me rephrase that: he didn't bring success; he bought success.
Yeah.
And he loved it. He just loved it all. You know, it was just a big ego trip for him.
Yeah.
Just for my youthful mind, Anton Johnson's one who was chairman during 1980-81, right? So yeah, I know his stuff, mate.
I'll tweet out a picture. Anybody's just listened to the audio, I'll tweet out a picture that I've just shown on the YouTube, because it's just lower league chairman personified, really.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Chris Nichols, have we paid a loan fee for? We will have paid a fee, and if there's no recall, we will probably have to pay a bit extra. I imagine that these things will work. We pay a bit extra so Sunderland can't call him back, or more of his fee, or something like that. There is always a loan fee, or nearly always a loan fee. So it depends on how much it is. If Danny's right, which I hope he is, that there is no recall, I imagine we've got to pay a bit more of a loan fee. Is normally how it would work. ONOB, do you think they'll remove the Solon clause for Zambales now? Could be positive. Well, if he's selling for £1 million, they don't need $500,000 from us, do they? So I think that'd be fair. I mean, I'm not sure Saracens are known to be fair, but you can always hope. Where are we? Apparently, Gary says he spent per house's money and had ties with South and Derby while Southern Millers. That's probably a booking that, or a special episode, Mick, for you to do one day for that.
It would be, but bear in mind that I was, 14, 15 at the time. All I remember is happy days and, lots and lots of victories and a promotion. I don't remember I wasn't switched on to the ins and outs of what were going on behind the scenes at the club at the time. I know a lot of our supporters were still, sort of got a much better memory of it than me.
This would have been a good time to have Brian Chaplin, wouldn't it?
It would have been a perfect time to have Brian here. Unfortunately, that should have started with this one.
We should. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention before I finally reveal the name of the player? because I've now remembered. So we're going to speak.
What, you've remembered who it is? Or
I've written it down in front of me. So any other topics from Tuesday, Saturday, next Saturday? Party gone? Anything else we want to mention?
I just want to mention one on the EFL podcast again. I mean, it's a bit iffy mentioning someone else's podcast when you're doing a podcast yourself, but ours is far better.
Yes.
But yeah, someone warned his comments about management being a bit like giving a best man speech at a wedding, but you have to do it twice a week. You know, you get the nerves and it either goes really well or really badly. But you've got a chance to switch off after doing your best man speech. But if you're a manager, you don't have a chance to switch off because it's straight on to the next game. And I'm sure Paul won. I mean, he might be watching this whilst his wife watches Strictly. I'm not sure. Or he might be out with his dog. But one is the way he conducted himself on that podcast made you really proud to say that's our manager, because it was a really good listen. I listened to it before coming on here, and it was really, really interesting.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree. And Ben talks about managers not telling the whole truth about things, and I get that because other managers don't. But it's interviews like that which tell me that he tells us everything that he can. I'm sure there's things legally, for contract situations and things like that he can't tell us. But he's so open and honest. And this is not just in terms of Rotherham managers. I've never known a manager as open and honest as Paul Warne. In the entire time I've been watching football, he's so open. He just whenever I've never seen him sort of turn down a question in an interview or press or anything like that. He's just happy to answer and talk to people, Mick. And it's such a breath of fresh air. And that's clearly why he's so popular with not just fans. He's popular on that podcast.
Yeah,
it was clearly popular with the people on it.
I think in a very, very different way, the only other manager I can think of that was as brutally, as honest was Brian Clough. I mean, Brian Clough did not mince his words with anybody. A completely different character, completely different management style.
Paul Warne not going to punch a fan, is he?
No, absolutely. But
I've recently heard a story about Brian Clough, which I found hilarious, but I'll save it until Mick's finished.
Let's be fair, that fan deserved a punch, didn't he? And Brian Clough gave him one. I mean, he's absolutely, he is just an absolute star, isn't he? I'm so happy that he's our manager. Absolutely can't tell you, because for all the reasons you've outlined there, plus he's just a thoroughly decent bloke, isn't he? Yeah. What you see is what you get with Warney.
Yeah,
and you've got to love him.
Definitely. Go on, Danny. Tell us your Brian Clough story.
Right. So this was when Wimbledon, the original Wimbledon, went to Nottingham Forest, and they were like the first team to like bring the really big ghetto blasters to the ground and bring music with them. And so they're playing the music really loud from their changing room. And Brian Clough says to his assistant, tell him to go and turn the music off. So he goes. Vinnie Jones answers the door, which in itself is quite scary. And he goes, excuse me, Mr. Jones, can you turn off your music? Yeah, of course, no worries. So he goes back to the changing room, and music starts playing, this time even louder. So Brian Clough sends him again, I'm sorry to disturb you again, Vinny, but can you really turn it off? Yeah, of course, no worries. So he goes back, turn it up a bit louder. And so Brian Clough just goes, right. So he storms to the dressing room himself, knocks on the door. Vinnie Jones opens the door, and he walks straight in, picks up the ghetto blaster and smashes it on the ground. And it just goes, now you won't play your music, will you, Wimbledon? And they beat him 4-1.
Yes. Gotta love a bit of Brian Clough. So there we are. There's the show. I hope you've all enjoyed it. We will try and get Brian Jeff on again at some point in the future, because it's great to have on. Now is the time where I tell you who we're going to have on the podcast. Me, Mick, and Danny.
Thank God he's remembered.
I remembered. See it? I got it down. Me, Mick, and Danny. This will be out the week after. We will be speaking to Kirk Broadfoot, which I am very excited about. I love Kirk Broadfoot. It was such a good player to watch. We've got so many questions that we can ask him, that we are going to ask him, and we want the fans, you guys, to tell us what to ask him as well. So we'll put something out on Twitter and Facebook asking for your questions. I'm not going to say anything because I think there's areas we might not be able to talk about with his time at the Millers. One particular incident. Feel
What are
free
you
to send
talking
it.
about? I don't know what you're on about.
Which incidents? That's what I wonder.
Feel free to send the questions in, and we will ask him what he wants to talk about in terms of that incident. We will ask the question. I don't know what he can talk about and wants to talk about, but we will ask him what he can and can't talk about with that. Harry, it won't be live; it will be pre-recorded. So apologies for the reasons for the questions that I've just mentioned.
We don't want to ask him that question live, do we?
No.
Well, we've done a few of these with ex-players, and doing them live we've found definitely not a very good idea, because I don't think there's any of them that haven't had to be clipped in place.
Yes, these ones need some editing. So yeah, we will ask him. Thank you to Inverness Caledonian Thistle. I should name check the guy or I've emailed really, shouldn't I? Because he has been superb in allowing us access to their players. Still playing for Inverness Caledonian Thistle. So Liam Morrison, who is the press guy at Inverness Caledonian Thistle, has been an absolute legend by helping us set this up. So we'll be speaking to him on Thursday night. The episode will go out a couple of days after. So any questions you want to come, we have the email. If you want to email him in, ifcpod@gmail.com, send them in there. We will put as many questions as we could possibly fit into the time we're allowed with him. It covers such. We talked about this the other day, Mick. It came in under Steve Evans. He then played under Neil Redfern and Neil Warnock. He then stayed under Alan Stubbs and was there when I'm pretty certain he was there when Warney first started as manager. It covers such an interesting part of our recent history. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Get your tin hat on.
And he also was very good at winning penalties. I want to ask him about his winning penalties for a defender. A famous day at Milton Keynes where we won 4-0. He was a massive part of that as well. There's so many good moments to talk about. So we will definitely be asking all the questions that you want us to ask, that we can ask. And we're working on the players. Like I said, we'll try and get as many former players on as we can. We don't get a response every time, which is understandable because people have got busy lives. But we are trying to bring as many people as we can, because I want to hear the from, so I assume other fans do as well. So, thank you for watching.
We'll get Brian back on as well. Sorry, we'll get Brian back on at some stage as well, once he can get his Wi-Fi sorted.
Yeah, we were meant to have Charlie on tonight as well, Charlie Hawkes, but he's had another thing come up, so we will definitely have Charlie. I've been trying to get him on for a few weeks now. Some things keep popping up, so I hope everything's all right with him, and he will be with us at some point in the future, as will a few other people as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe if you haven't already. If you're watching on Facebook, go over to YouTube and subscribe. If you're on the audio side of things, again, make sure you subscribe to Apple, Spotify, or whatever. Give us a 5-star rating if you can as well, because we would really, really appreciate that. We will be back live on Sunday night with the episode out on Monday. What we're going to do is have a quick look back at the 11 games or so that's gone so far. It's sort of almost a third of a season review, and talk about the teams we played against and whatever goes on from there. Next week's episode, we'll talk about that when next week comes. Danny, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with us again, mate. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. I think I'm going to have a lemsip when I've done with this, because my voice is starting to hurt now.
Right. And Mick, I assume you're going to have a beer.
No, school night, innit?
Fair enough.
Them pesky school nights.
School night, my wife's at home.
She's back, is she?
Okay, do.
And we're back soon. Thank you all for watching, listening, and we'll see you very soon. Freddy's on one-on-one. Freddy shoot. Can Freddy go shot? Yeah!